ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to rise above every challenge while others keep circling the same failures? It's not luck and it's not genius, it's one crucial choice they make daily. Picture this: you're standing at a crossroads, one path leads to growth, discomfort, and greatness, the other to comfort, excuses, and regret. Most choose the easy road, not realizing they're trading their potential for temporary relief. Here's the twist: successful people never do that. They avoid one silent killer of progress, a habit so common, so subtle, yet so dangerous it quietly sabotages dreams before they even begin. And no, it's not binge watching cat videos, though that might be a close second. What if I told you that the very thing holding you back isn't a lack of time, talent, or resources, but a decision you make, often without knowing it? Stick with me, because once we uncover this hidden trap and how the most successful among us sidestep it, you'll never see your own choices the same way again. Successful people understand something that most overlook. Excuses are easy, but ownership is everything. When things go wrong, when goals aren't met, or when setbacks hit harder than expected, the average person looks outward. They blame the system, the timing, the market, their team, or even fate itself. But successful individuals, they turn the focus inward. They ask themselves, what did I miss? What could I have done differently? This mindset shift is not about self-blame, it's about self-empowerment. By taking ownership, they take back control. They put themselves in the driver's seat of their own lives. You see, making excuses offers short-term comfort. It cushions the ego and protects us from the sting of failure. But in that comfort lies danger. Every excuse creates distance between you and your potential. It becomes a wall between who you are and who you could be. It's easy to say, I didn't have enough time, or the opportunity just wasn't right. But the hard truth is, time is made, not found. Opportunities are created, not given. Successful people don't wait for perfect conditions, they shape them. They believe that responsibility is the birthplace of freedom, because if it's your fault, it can also be your fix. This mindset doesn't come naturally to most. It's painful to admit our flaws or misjudgments. It requires emotional strength to say, I failed because I didn't prepare enough, or I didn't reach out to the right people. But in that pain, something powerful is born: clarity. Clarity about what needs to change, where to grow, and how to move forward. When you own your mistakes, you gain the power to transform them. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become the author of your story. Think about the people you admire, the entrepreneurs, the leaders, the trailblazers. Rarely will you hear them wallowing in complaints. Instead, they speak in terms of solutions. When a product fails, they rework it. When a partnership collapses, they learn from it. When a campaign doesn't land, they pivot. Their instinct is not to shield themselves from criticism, but to embrace feedback like fuel. They seek it out, not because it's comfortable, but because it's necessary. Ownership is not just about admitting wrongs. It's about obsessively searching for what can be better, even when things are already good. This principle applies in the smallest moments too. Running late to a meeting? Don't blame the traffic. Say, I didn't plan well enough. Project missed the deadline? Don't point fingers. Say, I underestimated the time it would take. It sounds simple, almost too basic, but the difference it makes over time is massive. That pattern of radical responsibility compounds into trust, discipline, and ultimately, credibility. People respect those who own their outcomes. It shows maturity, confidence, and integrity, and in a world full of finger-pointing, those qualities are rare and magnetic. Ownership doesn't mean everything will always go your way. In fact, it often means embracing mess, chaos, and uncertainty head-on. But it also means you never feel helpless. When a successful person hits rock bottom, their first thought isn't, why me? It's, what's the next move? They see failure not as a full stop, but as a comma, just a pause before the sentence continues. They live in the mindset of next. Next action, next improvement, next try. That kind of thinking is contagious and energizing, not just for them, but for the people around them. Ironically, when you stop making excuses, your environment starts to shift too. Teams perform better under leaders who own their decisions. Businesses thrive when people admit gaps and fix them quickly. Relationships deepen when both sides drop the defensiveness and focus on growth. Ownership breeds momentum, and momentum builds results. There's no need to pretend everything's perfect when you know you have the power to make it better. And there's no fear in being wrong when you trust yourself to learn fast and course correct. Of course, taking ownership is not a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. Every morning, you choose whether to respond to life as a victim or a leader. In the face of problems, do you pause and reflect or react and deflect? When you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that many of your limits were not placed there by the world, but built by your own narrative. And the good news, narratives can be rewritten. Successful people know that waiting for the perfect moment is the fastest way to miss every opportunity. The idea that conditions have to be just right, that stars must align, that more experience or more clarity is needed, these are illusions that trap potential in an endless loop of hesitation. While others pause, doubt, and plan endlessly, successful individuals move. They take action before they feel ready because they understand that readiness is not a prerequisite for progress, it's a product of motion. The perfect moment rarely arrives, and when it does, it often goes unnoticed by those too afraid to leap. There's a kind of electricity in urgency, a sense of momentum that pushes things forward before fear has a chance to speak. That urgency is not about rushing or being reckless. It's about recognizing that time is not just money, it's your most valuable asset. And every second spent hesitating is a second that could have been used building, learning, testing, failing forward. People often say, I'll start when I'm more confident. But the truth is, confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. The first step is rarely graceful, but it's always necessary. Those who wait for perfect conditions are often chasing an illusion of certainty. They want to know the outcome before they commit. But successful people don't need guarantees, they trust themselves to adapt. They are willing to take imperfect steps in the direction of their vision because they understand that clarity comes through doing, not overthinking. Plans change, strategies shift, but without movement, nothing evolves. They believe that action, even when messy or misaligned, teaches more than a lifetime of contemplation. Think about how many dreams have been delayed or destroyed by the phrase, not yet. Not yet because I'm too young. Not yet because I need more money. Not yet because I'm waiting for a sign. It sounds rational on the surface, but underneath, it's often just fear wearing a clever disguise. And fear, left unchecked, becomes a habit. One day turns into 1 month, 1 year, a decade. Successful people break that cycle with urgency. They move when it's uncomfortable. They speak before the idea is polished. They launch before the product is perfect. Because the truth is, while you're busy waiting, someone else is already doing. Urgency is not about chaos, it's about intentional speed. It's about knowing that momentum compounds. One small step today can unlock doors tomorrow that you didn't even know existed. It might be a conversation that leads to a connection, a post that goes viral, a pitch that gets a yes. None of it happens without movement. And the funny thing is, when you act with urgency, the world starts to respond differently. Opportunities appear not because the world changed, but because you did. Action shifts your energy. It tells the universe, I'm serious, and the universe listens. Many people confuse being busy with being urgent. But urgency isn't about filling your calendar, it's about aligning your time with what actually matters. It's the discipline to say, this moves the needle, this doesn't, and to act accordingly. It's choosing to prioritize growth over comfort, results over perfection. Successful people don't have more hours in the day, they just make more of the hours they have. They treat time like a limited resource, not a luxury. Sometimes urgency is triggered by crisis, a loss, a setback, a realization that time is slipping by. But the truly successful don't wait for life to shake them, they create their own sense of urgency every single day. They wake up with fire in their belly, not because they're fearless, but because they know the cost of inaction. They've seen people with incredible potential do nothing with it, and they refuse to be one of them, so they act, they move, they try, they fail faster and therefore learn faster. It's not talent that separates them, it's how quickly they execute on their intentions. People often say, I don't want to rush into it, but the risk of starting too soon is almost always smaller than the risk of waiting too long. There will always be unknowns, always be doubt, always be reasons to delay. But successful people are driven by a louder voice, the one that says, go, build, begin. Because they know the perfect moment isn't found, it's created through decisive, focused, and fearless action. Successful people have a radically different relationship with failure than most. Where others see a dead end, they see a doorway. While many shrink back at the first sign of defeat, they lean in. They don't just accept failure, they expect it, prepare for it, and ultimately use it to grow. This mindset isn't born out of some reckless love for pain or disappointment. It comes from understanding that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the process. Every breakthrough is built on a pile of mistakes, missteps, and lessons that couldn't have been learned any other way. Fear of failure keeps countless people frozen. It whispers, what if you're not good enough? What if they laugh? What if you lose everything? And the truth is, those fears often feel real. But successful people don't wait for the fear to disappear, they act in spite of it. They understand that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward anyway. Because the fear of failure is nothing compared to the regret of never trying. And regret doesn't go away, it lingers, quietly reminding you of everything you could have been if only you had the nerve to begin. There's a secret most high achievers know. Failure is a faster teacher than success. Success can be deceiving. It can make you complacent, overconfident, or even blind to weaknesses. But failure is brutally honest. It strips away ego and exposes the truth. It shows you exactly what didn't work, why it didn't work, and what must change. That kind of clarity is priceless. It might sting in the moment, but it sharpens your instincts, your strategies, and your mindset in ways no textbook or seminar ever could. Take a closer look at the journeys of those who inspire you. Behind every major win is a trail of setbacks that the world often forgets. The celebrated entrepreneur with $1 billion exit probably went bankrupt once. The Olympic champion standing on the podium likely failed hundreds of times in private. The best-selling author on every shelf, rejected by dozens of publishers before someone finally said yes. These stories don't make headlines, but they form the foundation of every real success story. And the only reason they ever reached the top is because they didn't stop at failure, they used it as fuel. There's a kind of resilience that comes from failing forward. Each time something breaks, you rebuild stronger. Each time you fall, you rise with more insight. Over time, failure stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like a mentor. It becomes part of your identity, not in a way that defines your limits, but in a way that defines your fight. It proves to you over and over again that you are not made of glass, that you can be hit, stretched, tested, and still show up tomorrow ready to go again. That grit, more than talent, is what separates those who make it from those who don't. Many people avoid failure by playing small. They lower the bar, stay within their comfort zone, or only try when the odds are heavily in their favor. But the irony is that very strategy leads to mediocrity. Playing it safe is the most dangerous game because it slowly kills your ambition. It convinces you to settle for less than you're capable of. Successful people reject that path completely. They bet on themselves even when the odds are uncertain. They understand that big risks carry the possibility of big failure, but also the potential for extraordinary reward. Even more powerful is how successful people respond to failure. They don't wallow or spiral. They reflect, recalibrate, and re-engage. They ask different questions. Not, why did this happen to me? But, what can I learn from this? Not, am I good enough? But, how can I grow stronger? That shift in thinking makes all the difference. It's not just about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. Using each loss as leverage to reach the next level, with more wisdom, more strategy, and more purpose than before. Failure can be brutal. It can break your confidence, shake your identity, and bruise your pride. But if you let it, it can also refine you. It can teach you what truly matters. It can push you to evolve. It can carve out a deeper version of who you are, someone who's not just chasing success for the applause, but for the growth, the challenge, the fulfillment that only comes from earning every inch. When you stop fearing failure and start embracing it as your greatest teacher, you unlock a level of freedom and power that most never experience. Successful people are obsessed with learning, not because they have to be, but because they understand that curiosity is the real engine of growth. They never reach a point where they believe they know enough. No matter how much they've achieved, how many accolades they've earned, or how far they've come, they wake up every day hungry to know more, to understand deeper, and to stretch beyond their current limits. Curiosity isn't just a trait for them, it's a lifestyle. While others settle into patterns, satisfied with the comfort of what they already know, successful people remain restless in their pursuit of what they don't know. This relentless curiosity fuels everything they do. It drives them to ask better questions, to challenge old beliefs, and to seek out new perspectives even when it's uncomfortable. They don't just consume information to sound smart, they absorb it to grow, to adapt, and to become more effective. They read books that stretch their thinking, listen to people who challenge their assumptions, and explore fields far outside their own expertise because they understand that innovation often comes from connecting dots no one else has thought to connect. Curiosity keeps their minds sharp, flexible, and open, three qualities that are essential in a world that's constantly changing. There's a quiet danger in assuming you already know enough. It creates blind spots. It leads to arrogance. And worst of all, it kills growth. Successful people have no tolerance for stagnation. They know that learning isn't something you graduate from, it's a lifelong discipline. In fact, the higher they climb, the more they realize how much they don't know. That realization doesn't intimidate them, it excites them. It pushes them to go deeper, to study harder, to stay humble in the face of complexity. They don't pretend to have all the answers. Instead, they become masters at finding better answers faster. Staying curious also means being willing to look foolish sometimes. It means asking the question everyone else is too afraid to ask. It means admitting when you don't understand and having the courage to explore anyway. That vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. It's the mindset that fuels discovery and unlocks possibility. Successful people aren't worried about how they'll look, they're focused on how they'll grow. They know that every great idea, every powerful insight, every breakthrough begins with a simple, honest question: what if? This mindset applies not just to business or academia, but to every area of life. Curiosity makes you a better leader, a better communicator, a better friend, a better human being. It forces you to listen more deeply, to empathize more fully, and to challenge the status quo with intelligence and respect. While others cling to certainty, successful people embrace exploration. They see the unknown not as something to fear, but as something to pursue. They dive into new industries, study foreign cultures, learn new languages, and test out new skills not to impress anyone, but to keep expanding the edges of who they are. Even failure becomes a form of education when you're relentlessly curious. Instead of asking, "Why did this go wrong?" and stopping there, successful people dig deeper. They ask, "What didn't I see? What could I do differently next time? Who could I learn from to avoid this in the future?" That kind of inquiry turns every setback into a stepping stone. It transforms disappointment into development. The result is not just wisdom, it's resilience. Because when you're committed to learning, nothing is ever wasted. This constant learning isn't random or unfocused. Successful people design their environments to support their curiosity. They schedule time to read, they follow thought leaders across diverse fields, they attend workshops, seek out mentors, and regularly reflect on what they've learned. They track their growth like others track their finances because to them, learning is the ultimate investment. It pays the highest dividends, not just in money, but in clarity, confidence, and capability. More importantly, their curiosity is contagious. When you're around someone who's genuinely excited about learning, it's hard not to feel inspired yourself. Their questions spark new questions in others. Their passion becomes a kind of permission to explore, to wonder, to admit you don't know everything, and to make growth your goal. They raise the bar for everyone around them, not by preaching, but simply by modeling what it looks like to stay hungry, even when they could easily relax. In a world that changes faster than ever before, staying curious isn't optional, it's essential. What worked yesterday might be irrelevant tomorrow. Trends evolve, technology advances, and the rules keep shifting. The only way to stay ahead is to stay open, to stay in motion, to keep asking, exploring, and learning not out of obligation, but out of a deep belief that you can always become more than you were the day before.